Emotional regulation is one of those things we were never really taught as kids, and now as moms, we're expected to just have it together all the time. But when you're neurodivergent, that's easier said than done. So if you've ever wondered why your emotions feel like a runaway train, or why emotional regulation feels like an impossible skill some days, this episode is for you. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the nostalgic Neurodivergent, where we talk about neurodivergence, parenting, and life, served with a side of nerdy Zennial energy. I'm Corey, and today we're diving into a topic that so many of us struggle with: emotional regulation. Specifically, why it feels so much harder for neurodivergent moms and what you can actually do about it. So in this episode, we'll cover why emotional regulation feels harder for neurodivergent moms, how trauma, RSD, and sensory overload impact emotional regulation, practical quick regulation hacks for real-life moments, and how to create an emotional regulation toolkit that works for you. So first, let's break this down on a brain science level. Neurodivergent individuals, especially those of us with ADHD or autism, experience differences in how their brains process emotions. Studies have shown that our amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for processing emotions, tends to be more reactive, meaning we feel emotions more intensely and for longer periods. Add in differences in dopamine and cortisol regulation, and suddenly what might be a minor frustration for someone else feels like a full-blown crisis to us. This isn't about being quote-unquote too sensitive. This is literally how our nervous systems are wired. Then, if you throw in executive dysfunction, emotional regulation can become even harder. Because it's not just about controlling your emotions, it's about your brain struggling to switch gears, process feelings, and regulate responses in real time. So growing up, emotional regulation was just go to your room until you calm down. No one ever actually taught us how to regulate. So of course, now we're trying to figure it out on our own as adults. So now let's talk about the things that make emotional regulation even harder for us as neurodivergent moms. Let's start with our lovely friend, rejection-sensitive dysphoria. That's the overwhelming emotional pain when you feel like you've let someone down or been misunderstood. Yep, there's RSD, and it can hijack your emotions fast. Next, we factor in sensory overload. So when your environment is too loud, too chaotic, or too stimulating, your nervous system is going to go into overdrive. So this is why seemingly small things like dishes clanking or kids talking over each other can trigger an outsized emotional response. And we need to address the unresolved trauma. So if you grew up in an environment where emotional regulation wasn't modeled, your nervous system might still be stuck in flight, fight, freeze, or fawn mode when emotions get high. So understanding how these factors impact your emotions is key to working with your brain instead of against it. So do you remember when we still had dial-up internet and it took forever to get a page to load? That's what it can feel like trying to regulate emotions when your nervous system is already overloaded. So what do we do when emotions hit hard? Here are some quick regulation strategies that you can use in the moment. First, try the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding technique. Identify 5 things you can say, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. This helps pull you out of emotional overwhelm and back to the present. You can also try the ice pack trick, where you are holding something cold, like an ice pack or frozen orange, and this activates the vagus nerve, which signals to your nervous system that you're safe. You can also try box breathing, where you breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it for 4, exhale for 4, and then hold for 4. And you repeat this until your body starts to relax. And you can also try a movement reset. If you're feeling stuck in an emotion, shake out your hands, stretch, or try to go for a quick walk. Movement helps reset your nervous system. So those are just some small but pretty powerful ways to regulate in real time. Beyond those in the moment hacks, it's also important to have long term strategies that support emotional regulation. And this is where developing your own personal emotional regulation toolkit comes in. You start by identifying your triggers. So write down the top things that send you into overwhelm because knowing them in advance helps you plan ahead. Number 2 is to build a sensory toolkit. You can include things like noise canceling headphones, fidget tools, weighted blankets, whatever it is that's going to help you soothe your nervous system. And you can also incorporate a regulation routine. So find daily habits that help keep you regulated, like morning movement, journaling, or structured downtime. And create a pause plan. So what will you do when your emotions hit hard? Having a pre-decided plan takes the guesswork out of the moment. Emotional regulation isn't about never getting dysregulated, but it is about knowing how to support yourself when it does happen. So think of this like your own personal cheat codes. Instead of trying to power through emotional overload, you're giving yourself the tools to reset and keep going. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Emotional regulation isn't about controlling your emotions. It's about understanding them, supporting your nervous system, and giving yourself grace. There are still going to be tough days, but the more you practice, the easier it will get. You don't have to be perfectly regulated all the time, and let's face it, most of us aren't. You just need to have the tools to help you navigate it when things get hard. If this episode resonated with you, don't forget to grab my Master Your Emotions 5 Simple Steps to Regulate and Reclaim Your Calm guide. It is packed with strategies to help you build your own emotional regulation toolkit. So just remember, emotional regulation is a skill, not something you're just born knowing how to do, and you can build it over time. If you enjoyed this episode, I would greatly appreciate it if you subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend who might need to hear this message. The more people we reach, the more people we can help. And don't forget to grab your Master Emotions Guide. The link is in the show notes, and I will talk to you again soon.